Hi guys, Ryu here with another Toot for Blender HardOps Mastery, Part 2. Now in this part I want to talk about two things, okay? We're gonna talk about tools that are, well, not tools, other add-ons that are integrated into HardOps. You can access them very easily through HardOps menu. And I'll show you a basic overview of the most fundamental functions and things that you can do with HardOps so you can get started with it, okay? So when you press Q, you access HardOps menu and you got different options in here, right? But I want to talk about this SD3 Loader for a while. That's a new function that was introduced about 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe 4. It's a new sort of a menu for two add-ons. You can see DM and KO. By the way, if you hover your mouse over any of the tools in HardOps, you're gonna have a pop-up message giving you some tips on shortcuts and in a very brief description telling you what you can do with it. Now, DM stands for decal machine and KO stands for KitOps. So now let's click on this SD3 Loader and see what's it all about. You're gonna have a new window in here on the left side. And if you hover your mouse on the left bottom and top right corners, you can see those kind of arrows popping up, right? So the bottom one you can move the window with, and the top one you can actually resize it, okay? In here you can see KitOps. If you click that, the add-on will switch to decal machine and back to KitOps, right? And then you have libraries of decals or KitOps inserts, materials, etc. Depending on your libraries will differ because, you know, it depends what kind of decal libraries you have installed or KitOps libraries, right? Now, this is a very simple menu for decal machine and KitOps. It's actually a sort of like click to drop menu. And I'll tell you why in a second, but let me show you something really simple. So let's go to decals, right? Go to Team C and click on this HardOps thing. So if I go to dev mode in here, look dev, and press W to get out of the HardOps menu and press D to access decal machine, right? I can press G and with control, by the way, wait, let me turn my keys, screencast keys on so you can see what I'm doing here. I always forget that. There we go. So I press G and control to sort of snap it to the surface, right? Then D for decal machine, adjust, make it smaller, press D and project. Now it's on the surface, right? Now KitOps, but that's a decal machine menu, so you know you need to have this add-on installed to be able to actually access it. But you can access, the point is that you can access decals through HardOps. Now the KitOps thing is actually quite cool, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really use the decal plugin, but the KitOps plugin is actually quite useful, especially for mods. Because you see KitOps is inserts, but it's also mods. So I select the cube and press Q, then go to SD3 Loader, switch to KitOps, then scroll up to metal, right? And let's grab this titanium mat. By the way, the material names are slightly misaligned. I think it should be fixed. So the titanium matte is actually this one, and titanium shiny is this one, right? You see it's misaligned. So if I control click on it, the material is gonna get applied to my item, right? And by the way, let's fix this awful hotlining with the decal. You can do it. You see those lines? I've mentioned it in my video about decal machine. You can fix that by, it's very common for transparent decals, even the line in here on the top, you see that. You can go to decal machine, decal machine, and then click on closest in this color interpolation window. You see it's gone. So what I was talking about, KitOps, right? So when I go to the shader here, let me show you the materials setup for this. You see that KitOps mod plugin, right? Drop this whole node with material into my scene. So I got, you know, control over the bump, roughness, color, everything through that node. I don't actually have to do anything, and that includes, UV unwrapping is extremely useful, that plugin. So I love using it. So that's KitOps and Decal Machine. Now then press Q, and we have three more add-ons in here, right? So if you go to operations, you can see mesh machine, and you need to have mesh machine installed to be able to access it. Decal Machine, KitOps, and mesh machine are all paid add-ons, but I highly recommend you get them. I'm using them in my daily workflow, and I couldn't even imagine doing hard surface without them. So I recommend them very, very much. So now the mesh machine can be accessed from this menu, but I'll be honest with you, I don't really use this from this menu. The reason probably is that it's easier to press Q because it's, you know, on the left hand side of the keyboard, and then go to the menu rather than pressing Y, which is actually a mesh machine menu access. So if you press Y, you access mesh machine, and you can see that this is exactly the same menu, right? So I just use Y on the keyboard. I got used to it, I guess. And then you have two more add-ons, but to actually show you what they do, I'm gonna go to edit mode. All right, so let's grab these verts here, go to side mode and orthographic, and now let's go to Q menu and go to plugin. And at the bottom, you can see mesh machine with a Y menu that's actually shifted now because we're in edit mode, so the menu looks different. And you have two add-ons in here, right? Mira Tools and Bezier Mesh Shaper. Mira Tools is free, and you can get it. Just Google Mira Tools and you'll find it. It's on GitHub, I think, or GitHub, whatever it's called. And Bezier Mesh Shaper is paid, but it's an extremely useful add-on in certain situations when you want to do global changes to the shape of the mesh. It's sort of like a proportional editing, but really powerful because it uses curves. I'll show you. So let's talk about Mira. If I click on Mira Tools over there, you can see this like a menu that follows my cursor, and you can also see menu, very small one here, like a tooltip. And if I scroll my mouse, I can scroll between 2 and 12 dots. Now let's pick 3 and press, you know, a left mouse button, and there you can see a very faint, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this on YouTube, there's a very faint blue line with like tiny bluish squares. And if you move these squares, you're going to reshape that curve, and depending on how many points you have, that's how many, you know, control points you're gonna get. So you applied it with right click, and there you go. Now the cool thing about Mira is that you can do a lot of stuff with it. I'm just showing the most basic stuff, you know. But if you go to this plugin menu again, and you press, let's say, curve stretch, and change the number of dots to 2, as things starts to get interesting, because now you get a straight line, which, by the way, you can move the whole line of verts in a straight line to, you know, whichever point you want. So this tool is fantastic for making like a straight line with verts when you have like a jagged line and you want to straighten up. That's just amazing. So that's a Mira Tools, right? Then Bezier Mesh Shaper is kind of similar, so let's go Q. Remember, you need to have some verts selected for this, right? For this to work. And let's go to curved. Now you see I got a curve here with 2 handles, right? So I can select on each point and either press G or R, and you know, you can move these points as well. You can extend them, you know, do all kinds of crazy stuff, and then press enter to confirm it. So there's an extensive menu here. So if you go again to Bezier Mesh Shaper and you press W, you're gonna have a new menu that you can access. There's a video on YouTube on Bezier Mesh Shaper. If you just Google this or just search YouTube for it, you're gonna find it, and you can, you know, see what all these functions are actually doing. I might make a video on this at some point, but possibly after I finish, you know, working on HardOps tutorials. So these are all add-ons that actually I can access from this menu, because these are the add-ons I have installed. But you know, possibly there is also a support for let me go quickly to add-ons and HardOps, right? There are more recommended add-ons. I've mentioned this in a previous video. like Group Pro and Batch Ops. I'm thinking that probably Jerry introduced some of these, some of the support for these add-ons because he really likes them. I just don't use them, so I do not see them. But again, be mindful of the fact that HardOps provides support for hard surface modeling add-ons. Of course, the select add-ons, not all of them. So let's talk now about the main menu and the very basics of what you can do with HardOps. So first of all, the Q menu is a main menu, okay? And HardOps has this tendency of displaying the most important stuff from the top, or narrowing the information just like it narrows down the numbers of clicks for you to, that you need to perform to do something in Blender, right? Like for example, you can apply all booleans and modifiers except for bevels and weighted normals, apply all that, apply smoothness and sharpness with one click, right? How many clicks is that in Blender? You need to apply every single modifier by hand. Preferably, before you do that, you need to actually put them in correct order, because applying modifiers needs to be done in certain order, otherwise things could go wrong. Then you need to apply sharpness, then you need to apply smoothness, right? So that's a lot of, and probably at the end, weighted normals or something, and it's a lot of steps. So that's the whole point. So for example, this menu, from the top, you got sharpen, bevel, array, and mirror, because these are the most common things that you're going to perform during hard surface modeling. Then you have operators with more advanced functions and more sort of functions that go deeper into the hard surface workflow. Then you have modifiers, but you can see that if you open modifiers in Blender, there's a lot of them, right? You can visually see that it's just, fewer modifiers in here. And also the order is slightly different, because you see from the top you got bevel, then you have solidify, array, and mirror, which are the most common modifiers that we use. Then you have mesh tools, which are very helpful tools for working with the mesh. So, such as dice, for example, that allows you to slice the geometry with like a knife-like cuts, twist 360, radial arrays, and materials and all that, right? And then you have settings, which you want to change some stuff or access other functions, like for example look depth, about which we're going to talk about another time. So let's talk about from the top, okay? Sharpen. Sharpen will apply sharp edges to the geometry and smooth it out. So it's going to apply auto smooth and sharp edges. You can choose what kind of sharpness, what kind of elements or like functions you want sharpen to perform, but that's again a subject for another video. Then you can apply bevel. Bevel also is going to smooth out the geometry, so it's going to apply smoothness and it's going to apply bevel. I have a second video on bevels, specifically for HardOps, stacking bevels, applying different types of bevels and how to manage bevels and work with bevels in HardOps. So if you want to learn more about that, I highly recommend you see that video. Let's go back here. Then we have array. And it's a new array. You can see that SD3 again here. It's a new system of array that it's quite actually interesting. It could be quite intimidating, but once you understand how it works, it's actually really fun to use. So if I hold Control, I'll show you just the basics today. So if you hold Control and move your mouse, you're going to be moving, changing the offset. If you scroll the mouse, you're going to change the number of items in the array. If you keep pressing the Control and start tapping X on the keyboard, you will start shifting the axis, right? And right click to cancel it, left click to apply it. Then we have mirror. I never access mirror from this menu because it's much easier to just press Alt X, because it's just so fast, Alt X is just so convenient, right? Eventually it's going to be a muscle memory for you. So if I press Alt X, I can, you can see the menu on the top. You can also access mirror menu by pressing D on a keyboard, okay? And you can see very briefly that this is a type of mirror. So for example, it's going to apply mirror modifier on a global axis that will modify across the region. Let's move this. Let's move the shape here. and go Alt X, press D and change pivot to the pivot point to cursor. And now you see that gizmo shifted from here to here. And if I click on this square, it's gonna mirror this on a y-axis, and the mirror has colors. Okay, so it's easy to recognize on which axis you are about to flip something. So that's that. The next thing that then you have an empty in the middle here, you see. So if you create a mirror modifier, right, and it mirrors something across a cursor, another object, etc., you're gonna have a empty created for that mirror. So you can, for example, do stuff like press R and Z to rotate it on Z axis, hold Control to snap it, and you could rotate it, for example, on 90 degrees. And then you have something like this. So you don't actually have to go in a Blender and create empty, then, you know, shift stuff across the empty and then rotate it. It's just a one-click deal, which is fantastic. So these are, I think, the most basic operations that you could do with hardubs. And then you could also, of course, apply modifiers very easily. So, for example, if I created a plane, I wanted to solidify it, right? I just press Q, I go to Modifier, Solidify, and I move my mouse. And now, you know, if I press 1, right, it goes up, 2 goes on both sides, 3 goes on the bottom, and 1 is at the top. So it's just an easy, really easy and fast way of working. Also, you have a tooltip in here if you need some help. You can always look that up, right? So that's modifiers. Again, I'll go into details, you know, into greater details in upcoming videos. This is just, you know, really basics to just, you know, get the grasp of how it all works and what's it all about, right? So let me show you something cool. The menu will shift depending on what's happening with the object. So for instance, we have, let's have a bevel in here, right? So I can array this or mirror this. So remember these options: sharpen, bevel, array, and mirror, right? Oh, by the way, the second array here is the old array. So if I press Control and array, you'll see a gizmo. So you can actually move it, the array, by sort of moving the gizmo with the mouse. And you have a plus and minus here. We can add or deduct, you know, items to your array. And another way to, for example, array stuff in hardubs would be to go to by pressing Alt W, entering the hardubs menu here, go into this top bar. We've discussed this before, and, you know, arraying it, maybe that's not the best example. Let's go x-axis, z-axis. You can array this, you know, this way, so manually. And then, since this is a smart modifier, you can have access to dots. So if I right click on it, I have access to bevel, and here I have access to the array. So, you know, I could either move these, change the offset, or right click on it and access the array modifier options. But let's apply bevel to this object very quickly. Press Alt W to switch to box cutter here, and let's perform very simple cuts. By the way, if you start performing booleans in surfaces, even if they flat surfaces, you will see that the shading is going to break because of the normals of the faces going not in the same direction. The very easy way to fix this is by adding weighted normal modifier in Blender, and in hardubs you can do it very easily by pressing Q and Alt clicking on sharpen, and this will add a weighted normal modifier at the end of the stack. Hardubs, by the way, has a function built in that allows you to sort modifiers automatically, and we will talk about it in another video. Anyway, but what I want to show you is this. So this menu here on this untouched cube is sharpen, bevel, array, mirror, because these are the options that you probably, you know, most likely going to think of. But this one has booleans going on in it, right? So you see, I have here something called mod scroll toggle. Now what's this about? If I click on this, right, you can see a menu in here, and here on the left hand side you have a modifier stack, so exactly the same information is in here. And if I scroll through my with my mouse, by default I'm scrolling through cutters. Look at this menu in here. I'm scrolling through cutters that have been created automatically by box cutter, because box cutter creates cutter collection, and all the cutters go there automatically, right? So if I recall a cutter, I can actually now edit it very easily. So this menu here supports the idea that, well, you have modifiers, Boolean modifiers running on this cube, so you probably might want to edit them, right? This is going to be the most likely thing that you want to do. So Hardup sort of intuitively, you know, sort of knows about it and allows you to work more intuitively. So that's really cool. There is one more thing I forgot to mention. That's quite a new addition to Hardups. Well, the guy who created the add-on actually works on Hardups and box cutter, but he's, by the way, I think designer of the dice tool, which is fantastic. And he actually came up with an add-on that's also free, and it's called Power Save. I completely forgot to mention that. Hope it will not kill me. So if you are actually, if you install this add-on, you're gonna have access to this add-on in here, and it allows you to specify a folder in your Blender, I mean, on your computer. So let's go to Power Save, right? You can specify a folder where you want your files to go, and if you click this button here, Power Save, it will create a you know, a file with a generic name, but you can specify the name of the file in here, and then every time you click this, it will create a consecutive file with new information. So it's really easy to sort of access your files and save them. It's just quicker than going in here and pressing Save As and changing your name. You just click once and you keep working, right? So that's fantastic. So that's another add-on that's actually implemented into Hardups, but it's a very small one, but it's a very useful one as well. Anyway, guys, that's all for this tut. I think that's supposed to be a very general info on integration of other add-ons to Hardups, and you know, very basic, sort of kind of like a bird's eye view look at Hardups, so you have a better understanding what you're working with. Next video is gonna go deeper into these functions, and we're gonna start doing some more complex stuff. Eventually, I want to move this series from a just pure tutorial and telling you how to do stuff to actually going into full mode modeling tuts. So I'll actually use Hardups and all the add-ons I use for my hard surface workflow, and I'll just, you know, sort of comment live when I'm working, or possibly do some voiceovers. We will see. Let me know how you feel about it, and if you would like to see something like this in the comment section. That's it for this tut. Thanks for watching, and I catch you in the next one. Have a good one.